Welcome to A Moment of Xen. Time to sit back and relax as model, actress, mentor, and supermom Xen Sams takes you on a sexy and wild ride, covering the latest in film, fashion, pop culture, cryptocurrency, fintech, cannabis, and entertainment from the millennial mom's perspective. Here's your host, Xen Sams.
Welcome back, New York City and beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Xen Sams. Here's to another exciting episode. It's such a pleasure to spend my time with you on the airwaves. Thank you for tuning in every Saturday and engaging with me on social media. That truly makes it all worthwhile. Please continue to follow me at Xen Sams. That's Xen with an X, not a Z, all over social media, XENSAMS. And remember, all episodes of A Moment of Xen are available directly on our YouTube channel Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern via digital streaming. You can also check us out on your home TV platform directly on our channel. It's family-friendly, free programming to you, no downloads needed. mox.yourhometv.com. Welcome back to A Moment of Xen alongside our experts on the microphone, where we cover film, fashion, pop culture, cryptocurrency, cannabis, fintech, and health, and yes, everything in between from the millennial mom's perspective via our experts on the microphone. Today, we have one incredible lineup and conversations that fuel the body, the mind, and the heart. In the Brain Blueprint segment brought to you by the Melillo Centers, where science meets neurorehabilitation, I'm going to chat with Dr. Melillo and dissect the surge of controversial claims tying everyday medical choices to autism. From RFK Jr.'s remarks on Tylenol and circumcision to the social media echo chambers magnifying misinformation, we're going to reveal what science actually shows and how the brain's wiring, not political rhetoric, holds the real answers. In Cyspera's Better, Brighter You segment, we are going from sun to glow, resetting post-summer skin with registered nurse Diane Gibson. She has over 25 years of experience and founder of Fitzy Shades Beauty Wellness in Prosper, Texas. We're chatting how seasonal transitions and science-backed pigment correction can help us achieve a brighter, more even complexion as we move from summer's sun to winter's glow. In the Hydration with Heart segment brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut, we're joined by Hannah Corbin, the queen of flexibility. We're chatting strength, longevity, and living with sass. She's an author of Did You Stretch, though? She's a former Broadway performer. Hannah Corbin is going to open up about her journey from the stage to the fitness world, how autoimmune diagnoses reshaped her perspective, and why she believes stretching is the ultimate self-care ritual for the mind, body, and soul. In our Going Deep segment brought to you by CO2 Lift in our Expert on the Microphone series, today we're featuring Michelle Hanna, best-selling author, personal and business relationship coach, and international speaker. She's going to join me to chat all about intimacy and healing, both physical and emotional, and the sexual wellness steps that can guide you towards personal growth and fulfilling healthy relationships. In our Clean Collective Express segment brought to you by Society Brands, today we're chatting about what clean beauty really means and how brands like Crunchy are redefining beauty with safety, transparency, and sustainability at its core. Stay tuned for Dr. Robert Melillo covering autism claims in the media, coming up next in the Brain Blueprint segment brought to you by the Melillo Centers. You're listening to A Moment of Xen. I'm your host, Xen Sams. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Xen is brought to you by Your Home TV with Kathy Ireland and their channel partners. Head to yourhometv.com for free, family-friendly programming, streaming 24/7.
Are you looking to build a new home? Think about building a barn-dominium. There's just something about getting away from it all. Country living, fresh air, and outdoor entertainment. Watch luxury barn-dominium tours on Your Home TV and let Stacy Lynn, the barn-dominium lady, take you on a journey through her barn-dominium designs.
Tune in to A Moment of Xen, Saturday nights from 9 to 10 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Xen Sams. Welcome back to the Brain Blueprint segment brought to you by the Melillo Centers, where evidence-based neuroscience helps children and adults rebalance their brains and reclaim their potential. Lately, my feed has been flooded with one headline after another. Tylenol causes autism, circumcision linked to neurological damage. RFK Jr. says the government is hiding the truth. according to the CDC, about 1 in 36 children in the US are now diagnosed on the autism spectrum. And that's a number that understandably worries every parent. But when public figures start mixing anecdote with science, confusion spreads faster than truth. So today, we're stripping away the noise with one of the most trusted voices in developmental neuroscience, Dr. Robert Melillo. His work has been cited in over 100 scientific papers and featured worldwide for reframing how we understand autism, ADHD, and the developing brain. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Oh, thank you for having me. I can't wait to get into this topic.
I know, you can't wait. Neither can I, because like I said, those headliners are flooding and a ton of misinformation and fear is starting to spread. So let's begin with the elephant in every headline. RFK Jr. recently claimed that Tylenol use during pregnancy and even circumcision could raise autism risk. Now, those statements have parents in panic mode, understandably so, Dr. Melillo. So from your decades of research and clinical practice, what does the science actually say? Is there any truth to these connections, or are we seeing correlation being mistaken for causation again?
Very good point. So first, let me say off from the very beginning that overall what I think RFK is doing and the administration is doing is I support. I think that they're bringing out certain things and we're having conversations about this, right? So this is good. I mean, I wrote a book in 2013 about this very topic with the idea that I wanted to start some conversation around what is causing this rise in all different types of childhood neurological issues? And is there something that can be done to maybe prevent it or slow it down or whatever, as well as what can be done after the fact? And so in this book, one of the first things, and this is the problem I have right now, is just the messaging is terrible.
Yeah.
What they're saying isn't, wrong per se, but the way they're putting it out there is giving the wrong message. I mean, I had a parent that was from a foreign country, I think Brazil. We're working with their autistic child here in New York. And we went through a consultation. At the very end, he said to me, "Can I ask you a question? Your government just said last week that Tylenol causes autism." Now, that's not what the statement was at all, but that's what they got out of it. And that's what a lot of people got out of it.
Yeah.
And, there's so many things that you have to take into account. Obviously you can look at it and as you just said, the last statement is that there's correlations here. That doesn't mean causation.
Right.
Obviously, if Tylenol itself caused autism, everybody who ever took Tylenol would either have autism or their children would have autism. So there's some other factor that might be associated with it. And just because it's correlation doesn't mean causation. Exactly.
And that distinction really matters, because in the era of viral clips, people hear a 30-second soundbite and start making life-altering decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate how you clarify that any association in one study doesn't prove a cause, especially without peer-reviewed replication. Now, I want to move on to, is autism actually rising, right? So the CDC says rates have risen from 1 in 150 in the year 2000 to 1 in 36 today, 2025. So that's staggering. But does it reflect a true increase, or, in your opinion, is it just a broader diagnostic criteria and awareness that we've come into?
Yeah. So again, let me start off by saying that I spent, over 2 years researching this book here, The Autism, the Scientific Truth About Preventing, Diagnosing, and Treating Autism Spectrum Disorder, and what parents can do now. When I spoke to a number of epidemiologists, which are people that really study this stuff, right? And so looking at, we see the numbers rise. Are they a real increase, or are we just recognizing it more, which is really what the controversy is out there. And the answer is about 50% of the increase is because we're recognizing it better and we're diagnosing it better, and we have better tools and better awareness, and we've expanded the diagnostic criteria and all of that. But at least 50% of the increase is not explained by any of that. That means that they represent new cases that never existed before, which means that there is actually this dramatic rise. And the only way you can explain that is through looking at different environmental factors, because For the most part, autism and almost any other developmental disorder is not caused by a genetic mutation. There is no one mutation or autism gene or ADHD gene. There are genes that may impart traits and predispositions, but they're not mutations. There's no injury in the brain. There's no damage. So what is actually happening? And so all of this needs to be considered. And we know that, there's no such thing as a genetic epidemic. And most of the parents, if not all of the parents of children with autism, usually are not diagnosed with autism. Only about 18% of the siblings may be diagnosed with autism. So therefore, if it was genetic, you would think, well, one or both of the parents have it, but there are traits.
So genetics alone can't explain such a rapid shift, okay? Environmental factors often get politicized, right?
Correct.
So where does the truth lie between DNA and daily exposures?
Well, the fact is that, again, if we're seeing this increase, there need to be factors other than genetic mutations that are affecting and they're impacting brain development without causing damage or injury. So what we overall look at is these are lifestyle issues, meaning that there's something in our lifestyle as a whole, as society, that's changed in the past 30 years that has affected brain development in our children. I mean, those are factors, right? Now there's a lot of research out there saying, what could those factors be? And that's where correlations like, well, if a mom has Tylenol when she's pregnant, there's an increased risk of her having a child with autism, right? Okay, it doesn't mean that it caused it, but there's a correlation. Now, that could be for other reasons. Why did the mom take Tylenol? Because she had a fever. Well, we know that if you have a flu virus or if you have an increase of certain immune factors or inflammation or a stress response, that elevates your risk of having a child with autism. And most lifestyle factors do that in some way. And so there's a number of different things, but basically the same thing. We're seeing also, an epidemic rise of obesity and cancer and diabetes and hypertension and autoimmunity and adult mental health issues. So the same factors that are driving that, things like obesity, diabetes, hypertension, lifestyle factors, are also driving what we're seeing with autism and ADHD and other developmental issues. And, so they're not really specific to autism per se, at least as far as we know, but all we can do is look and say there are correlations that if this is happening, if you have this type of, lifestyle or behavior, or you're doing this, then there's certain calculations that say can elevate your risk a certain percentage. Like, for instance, obesity, diabetes, and hypertension in a mom or a dad will elevate the risk of having a child with autism about 150% each.
Wow.
But the good news is, of course, that if you know that before you're getting pregnant, and if you get your weight under control or lower your blood pressure naturally or, normalize your blood sugar, then you can eliminate that risk. And now it no longer becomes a risk, right? And so you've lowered that risk. And this is the thing that nobody's talking about. And that's what I wrote that book about.
And knowledge is power. And I love that you just highlighted epigenetics, because I think that's the answer, right? So, how environment can switch genes on or off. That's it. And it makes this story of hope, not doom, right? This is a story, because when you tie it back to what you said, to epigenetics and how environment really shifts those genes on or off, when you look at the overall of the story we're trying to tell, is that it takes this story and now it's a story of hope, not doom, because it means lifestyle and prevention matter. And that's at the heart of what you're saying. And I truly think that that's important, because people are missing that part.
It's hugely important, because people understand when you hear something's a genetic disorder or it's inheritable, it's inherited. They don't really understand what that means. Most people mean, well, there's a genetic mutation and the gene is broken and there's nothing I can do about it. Or there's one gene that's causing this. Epigenetics changed that whole science permanently, because it means that without actually damaging or mutating a gene could be silenced or turned off or turned on when it's not supposed to be.
That's brilliant.
And different environmental factors have an influence on that and can change that. Now, there's a number of things about the human brain that make it uniquely vulnerable. And this is obviously my area of study, is studying human brain development. Human brain is unique in that, one, it's the largest brain per body size of any primate. Two, because we're the only bipedal or that walk upright, we have the smallest birth canal. So most of the development of our brain has to be restricted in the womb, and most of it develops outside. 80% of it develops outside the womb and is designed to adapt to the environment. So the genes that regulate brain development, 84% of our genes are active during human brain development. So just if any of those genes are going to be affected by environmental factors, the ones that regulate the brain are most likely because there's so many. But then also they're the most sensitive because they're designed to be sensitive, and they are the ones that can be impacted, especially the ones that form functional connections between the brain and between the hemispheres. So when we talk about epigenetics, any factor that might alter or affect expression of the genes is going to usually impact brain development and may slow or impact brain development so that it can alter the way the brain is supposed to grow and develop. And that's what we see. And our research has shown that's what's happening in autism and ADHD. The brain is kept in a more immature state, and then we see imbalances that develop, especially between the hemispheres, and that's what these issues are.
Right. So that you just said it. I mean, you've said that you can't talk about causation without first understanding the neurology itself. So, I mean, this is explaining a lot for our listeners and for the viewers tuning in. I mean, what you're describing is essentially what's going on in the brain. So for someone listening, tuning in right now, if you could simplify it in English language, what's going on inside the brain of someone with autism or ADHD?
So, and as you said, this is the thing that's not being talked about at all. And this is the thing, I don't think RFK has people around him that understand this, that what is actually happening in the brain in these issues. And if you don't understand that, then you can't talk about causation, you can't talk about really prevention, and you can't talk about even what treatment may work or not work. So what our research has shown, and I think we've done as much research as anybody in this, is that there is this overall delay in development of the brain where the brain isn't progressing or growing at the rate it should. And then this leads to developmental imbalances where certain areas and certain networks in one side of the brain might be developing faster or even maybe faster than normal, while other areas of the brain may be delayed and immature. And these imbalances in growth is affecting the communication and the synchronization of brain networks and the communication. It's a breakdown of communication in the brain where certain areas, each side of the brain works to keep each other in balance. And there's this dynamic balance in the brain. And again, the brain is created to be that way. And the right and left brain are very different in humans. And that's our greatest advantage. All brains have a right and left side from the beginning of time. But the way that happens is the right brain takes the lead in development in the first 3 years and keeps the left brain in check. And then the left brain comes up at the end of those 3 years and for the next 3 years, and it keeps the right brain. But then at the end of 6 years, the foundation of the differences in the right and left brain are there, but they need to be balanced and integrated. And then as the brain matures, the right and left brain become more and more and more specialized, but they need to become more and more synchronized. If anything disrupts that growth, that balance, that sequence, if one side gains too much of an advantage, it now will break down communication. That delicate balance doesn't exist. And now we get overactivity in areas of the brain and networks, like in autism, areas on the left side that produce things called stims or tics or repetitive movement or OCD, or increased inflammation or immune responses or anger outbursts or, other things like that, but also gifts like being able to read before the age of 2 or having a photographic memory or perfect pitch. On the other hand, the right brain is, if that's not developing, we will delay the onset of normal social development, nonverbal communication, being able to feel and connect with our own body and regulate our own emotions and develop attachment to other people and be able to see the big picture and have more kind of wisdom and understanding. And so, they all work together. And if this balance is disrupted, we get, and the, overactive areas, underactive, and depending on whether that's the right or the left or what areas is really what comes together to form not only childhood issues, but really 90% of adult mental health issues start in childhood and are part of the same problem.
Yeah, what you just explained, that was everything. Because that visual of the brain's two hemispheres being quote unquote out of sync is so powerful that it turns a label into a mechanism people can understand and actually fix through targeted stimulation and rehabilitation, which is everything you advocate for. And that's the entire narrative of the Melillo Center. So I love that. Which brings me to the book that started the shift. We alluded to something a little bit earlier, but you are in this for the long haul and have been one of the pioneers when it comes to authoring books on autism. Your 2013 book, Autism, The Scientific Truth, was ahead of its time. And you were quoted throughout a full page in the New York Post article that same year. So what made you step into that conversation before it was mainstream?
Really two things. One is because I have always worked for over 30 years with families with kids with delays and autism and ADHD and dyslexia and learning disabilities and adults. Many of the parents would come to me and say, listen, we want to have another child, but we're afraid. We're afraid we're going to have another child with autism and it might be overwhelming. And listen, that doesn't mean to sound judgmental or negative, but if you haven't walked in the shoes of a parent with a non-speaking kid, it's really hard and it's really difficult. And so, they were coming to me with these questions. And then I also had a nephew who, was a very bright guy and he had a lot of friends, Ivy League friends, and they were, out on a weekend out eastern Long Island. And he came back and he said to me, a lot of my friends who just got married or are thinking about getting married said they don't want to have kids because they're afraid of having a kid with disability because there's so many of them around now. And I thought, wow, there needs to be a conversation on this so that the reality, because people are reacting, they don't know, and they need to have some real information. So I started working with families and just trying to use some common sense things like, okay, let's look at blood work and let's look at things like, do you have vitamin deficiencies? Do you have inflammatory markers? Do you have heavy metals or toxins in your body? Can we work to lower those things? Can we look at your blood pressure, your weight? Can we look at other factors? And can we look at your brain? Do you have balanced brains, right? Because if your brains are not balanced, to me, that's the number one risk that you may have.
Right.
And doing things like that. Even things like age. Like we know that over the age of 35 for a woman, over the age of 40, there's an increased risk of having a child with a disability like autism. And again, preconception is where most of these risks are. So they're there before you get pregnant, and they're equal in men and women. So they don't just involve women or men. So again, there never should be any blame or anything like that felt by anybody. But the idea is that, even age, you can actually kind of lower your functional age. There's your chronological, and then there's your real age. And you can actually lower. You could be a 35-year-old woman with a 25-year-old body, or you could be a 35-year-old woman with a 45-year-old body.
Yeah.
And you can even measure that by looking at your genes and something called telomeres. And so there are many factors that you can do, and that's how we started doing that. And I've worked with several hundred families, and none of them had a second child that was diagnosed with autism. Now, did we prevent it? We can't prove that, but did we lower the risk? Yes, we did that in measurable ways, and it may have helped.
There you go. Now, you've long said that toxic exposure and stress and nutrition and sleep all play roles. So the factors today that stand out the most in your research, which factors are they, and do they impact men and women differently?
I think number one, like I said, is a brain imbalance. Ian McGilchrist, who's somebody I really respect, he's a psychiatrist from the UK, has written a number of books on how we're moving more and more towards a left brain society, meaning the way we educate kids, our jobs, everything we're doing, sitting in front of technology, playing video games, all of that feeds the left brain and is creating an overactivity, and we're really kind of favoring that. So that's one thing. But movement is really the number one thing. I think when we look at the impact of computer and computer games and technology, they do favor the left brain, but also we don't move, right? We sit in front of our computers all day. And, I remember when I first started researching my first book, I spoke to a teacher and she said, I don't know how this works, but I think what's causing this is kids don't use their big muscles anymore. She said, you used to go around and see kids in the street riding their bikes, climbing trees, playing football in the street. You don't see that anymore. She said, I see kids on the playground. And this was 25 years ago.
Right.
She said they used to play. They don't do that anymore. They sit there and they starting to get these things called Game Boys and stuff like that. Now they all have phones and they're not moving. And movement is the number one thing for developing the brain, especially big muscle movement promotes right brain development. But also when you're moving and playing games, you're socializing, you're learning how to read other people's bodies, and you're getting connected to your own body. And that also lowers your stress response. And so that's a big thing. And then stress, or we're under so much more stress. And, I think technology and all these things has only contributed to that. And that just fuels inflammation. All those three factors, I think, are the number one factors that we see happening.
Well, thanks for clarifying those. You definitely want to get those into check for all you men and women listening out there, which brings me to these new treatments. So there's a buzz around leucovorin. Am I saying it right?
Mm-hmm.
And to my understanding, it's being tested as a treatment for autism. So what's your take on those studies, and where should parents draw the line between innovation and internet hype?
Well, this is the thing. This is being driven by people that don't understand the brain and brain development and what autism is in the brain. Most of the people out there, and again, I have good friends in this community and I teach neuroimmunology in the functional medicine world, they understand the body, they understand the gut, they understand the immune system to a certain extent. They don't understand how the brain actually takes the lead and regulates all of that, and why we have a gut problem or a leaky gut, or why we have inflammation, why we have imbalances in our immune system, and what fuels that. And it all really starts in the brain and the brainstem. And so what happens is that, like when you look at something like anything, like vaccines or like Tylenol or whatever, and you say, okay, if vaccines themselves were the primary cause of autism, then everybody who was ever vaccinated, every child should have autism. And even the most staunch vaccine people say, yeah, okay, well, there's something different about these kids. Now, because they didn't look into the brain or nervous system, they look and say, well, they don't detoxify. Okay, why wouldn't they detoxify? Well, they need folic acid and B12 and other vitamins, and they have deficiencies, and kids with autism have been tested, and they show that they have less of that. And then we look and we find that they may have a version of a gene called the MTHFR gene, or they may have antibodies that go against their folate receptors. And that must be the reason. It's not the primary reason, but that is the line of thinking. The problem doesn't start in the gut. It doesn't start with that. But this is where leucovorin now is a more powerful form of folate. Now, I have many kids, and they've been tested for the MTHFR, and they're all on folic acid of some sort or B12, and it may be helpful, and they may have deficiencies, but it's being caused because they have an imbalance in what we call their sympathetic and parasympathetic, and their gut isn't working. They're not producing acid, and that's because of their brain and their brainstem. So leucovorin, it may help a bit. It's not the magic bullet that people may think it is. Is no harm in using it for the most part, although some kids can be over methylated.
Right.
But the bottom line is, I think it comes down to not understanding the brain, not understanding what actually is happening in the brain of someone with autism, and looking at other things going on and thinking that's the cause when it's really the result.
Yeah. That's the key takeaway. No quick fixes, just layered understanding of metabolism and neural repair. Science moves forward when we ask better questions, not when we look for miracles. I always say that. Now, we are at the end. I have one more question here for you, or two more, but I'm going to keep it cognizant of the time. So the Melillo Method and real world results. I mean, you've developed the Melillo Method and now run 2 Melillo centers right here in New York City, helping patients of all ages rebalance their brain. Can you share what your results look like and how quickly families see changes?
Well, that's the thing. Well, we've been doing this for a long time. And, we work with especially non-speaking autism, which is the most challenging, but also the most rewarding. And what we're able to do often is give them their voice without losing their genius, because all these kids are geniuses.
Yeah.
And literally, I'm not exaggerating that or saying that, to make people feel good. It's a real fact. So, these are the kind of results we get, but we do a very comprehensive, looking at the gut and looking at food sensitivities and looking at folate metabolism. And all those things are very important. All of those things absolutely can help change symptoms and can improve kids' function and adults, but it's not the root cause. And what we're dealing with is the root cause. Like one of the biggest mysteries that I've spent my 30 years trying to understand is, why doesn't a kid with autism speak? Nobody's ever answered that question before.
Right.
And so thanks to the help of many of these kids who have given me some of these answers, along with our research and my research partners, we've been able to answer that, I think, better than anybody else. And you can't really even think that you're going to give a kid his voice back if you don't know why he can't speak to begin with.
Yeah, that's so inspiring. Hearing parents say their child is finally making eye contact or even sleeping through the night. I mean, those are the wins that statistics can't capture, that no one really talks about, but that progress is a huge milestone for these families. Now we have 1 minute left, and the latest research and future of autism and science is at the forefront of everybody's brain. So your lab has published over 100 papers and just released, in fact, a new study in the MDPI Journal of Brain Sciences titled Autism Spectrum Disorder: What Do We Know and Where Do We Go? So what did you discover about where the field is headed next?
Well, that's the thing. We've been doing a lot of research, and over the past 3 or 4 years, we've published about 10 major papers in top journals like the British Medical Journal on looking at what is actually happening in the brain. One of the things we found was that there's a thing called retained primitive reflexes. As I said, movement is the most important thing to develop the brain. And the foundation of movement in humans is these things called primitive reflexes. And what we've been able to show is that in different types of delays like autism, many of them don't come on and they don't go away. They're supposed to come on for the first year and lead development of the brain and then go away. And if they don't go away, now they hold back the brain and they keep it in an immature state and they lead to these imbalances. And we've been able to do studies that, in fact, show that and show that we can get rid of those reflexes and then we can balance the brain out. And in doing that, we can change. And we've shown imaging of before and after on the brain where we can change the way the brain is working and coordinating and synchronizing. We also can change gut function and all of the balance between that systems. And I think that that's where more of our research is going on. And that's what we wanted to write. So that paper, which is pretty timely, came out, saying, hey, what do we know about autism now? Again, what is happening in the brain and what do we do moving forward? And that's really where the conversation should be. And that's why we wrote that paper.
Beautiful. This is so exciting. And we are officially at the end of time today. We're at the end of our time here, because when I look at the conversations, I want to specifically react to what you just said. What you said moves the conversation from blame to biology and from fear to function. So this paper is so timely, and we're finally taking solutions. We're finally talking about solutions instead of speculation. And I think you putting this into perspective and releasing that publication is extremely important for the community. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing. And more importantly, Dr. Melillo, thank you for cutting through the chaos and reminding us that science, not sound bites, should guide our decisions.
It's my pleasure. And again, I think, for more information, really, without sounding promotional, I mean, my book, I think is the best source. And I think it's also, we're always trying to give a hopeful message, right? Because the idea is it's never too early, it's never too late to do something, whether you're doing it preconception, but even after the fact. If people want help, There is help out there, and things can be helped, not to change these people, but to give them the best version of themselves, which is what we all want and what every parent wants for their child.
There you go. And for those listening, you can head directly on the gram at Dr. Robert Melillo across all platforms, and you can head directly to his website at drrobertmelillo.com. This has been the Brain Blueprint, brought to you by the Melillo Centers, where innovation meets healing and every brain has the power to reconnect. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by the Fieldhouse in Northvale, New Jersey, a vibrant and fresh take on youth and adult sports and family fun, and home to the New Jersey Thunder softball program. Plan unforgettable birthday parties or private events, or explore camps and programs that keep kids active and inspired. Take time for yourself in adult leagues or rent a field or court with friends. From a cutting-edge gaming cave to hitting and pitching centers and top-tier sports instructors, the Fieldhouse is reigniting the next generation of play. Head to njfieldhouse.com.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to the Better, Brighter You segment, brought to you by Cyspera, the revolutionary pigment corrector backed by science, not filters. As we step into cooler months, many of us notice those stubborn reminders of summer, uneven tone, melasma, or pigmentation that just won't fade. According to the American Academy of Dermatology, nearly 40% of women notice an increase in pigmentation irregularities post-summer, making fall and winter the ideal time to rejuvenate and repair. Joining me right now is Diane Gibson. She's a registered nurse seasoned with over 25 years of experience in healthcare and aesthetics. She's the founder of Fitzy Shades Beauty and Wellness in Prosper, Texas. She blends medical precision with holistic care, creating inclusive solutions that empower clients to look and feel their best. We're going from sun to glow and resetting post-summer skin. Welcome to the show, superstar.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. So wonderful to have you on the show. I'm going to dive right in. So it's amazing how the skin tells the story of our seasons. You know, I read that UV exposure accounts for up to 80% of visible aging, and dermatologists often refer to the fall months as recovery season for the skin. As we transition from summer to fall and winter, what changes do you typically see in your patient's skin, especially when it comes to pigment and sun damage showing up after those sunny months?
So a lot of what I see, especially here in our great state of Texas, we don't have 4 seasons. So it's like 90 degrees here still. So you still have people that are still just having some of the issues that they carried on from the summer. So and what I like to see, what I see all the time, people kind of put all this stuff on hold for the summer. Kids are like in school, out of school. So all the moms are like coming back right now, and some of them are in bad shape. They've been on vacation. They've neglected all the skincare. They haven't been getting their treatments. So we're having to clean up a lot.
That makes so much sense. The idea that summer fun can leave behind uneven pigmentation or dullness really highlights how vital year-round skin protection and repair truly are.
Yes.
Now, Texas sun doesn't play at all. Melasma, which affects around 6 million American women, tends to flare with heat and light exposure, even from devices. So it's fascinating how environmental and hormone intertwines here. So in Texas, where the sun exposure is intense, do you notice a spike in melasma or post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation this time of year? And if so, how do you adjust your treatment approach?
So we definitely noticed that. And we start to see a lot of it starting in the spring, because we get that high heat like sometimes starting in April, and we can still have that going until like Halloween. And so kind of how we love our product, Cyspera. One of the things we love about that is we love that we can use it all year round. So we're able to have our patients use it during the summer. But in addition to that, we kind of compare or combine that with one of our laser technologies, the Aerolase. This is a laser that is amazing, and it has a great melasma protocol. And it is also safe to use all year round. So like between the two of those, we're able to kind of get a good handle on melasma, because we're able to kind of like treat the pigment and address the vascular component of melasma.
Absolutely. And you said it. That's where Cyspera's unique formula really stands out, especially because it's safe across all Fitzpatrick skin types.
Yes.
And I love that inclusivity factor. It's skincare that meets everyone where they are. Now, coming into the fall during that colder season, many aesthetic experts say it's prime time for corrective procedures since there's less UV interference. And winter is often considered treatment season for lasers and peels. What do you recommend for long-term pigment maintenance once patients finish procedures?
So I recommend that pigment procedures for people that struggle with hyperpigmentation, I like to liken it or compare it to how you're going to treat your grays. It's not going to stop. Okay. This is going to be a lifelong thing. You're going to ride into the sunset, always doing things and having maintenance skincare to prevent it. So it never stops. So we're going to treat before, after we get done with those procedures, we're going to just constantly be on things that are going to suppress the things in our skin that causes the hyperpigmentation. So it's just going to always be an ongoing thing. And that's why, again, one of the reasons why we love this Cyspera, because we can use that. We get people on it for a certain amount of time. We add other things in like potent antioxidants, and they're just going to, from now on, just be on these treatments, just like you would treat any other thing. You're always going to be addressing your hair or nails. It's just a constant thing.
And that's a really smart approach. It reminds listeners that aesthetic results are built in layers, right? The prep, the procedure, and that post-care, they truly matter. And you mentioned something about Cyspera. I mean, that's a revolutionary product that's clinically researched and clinically verified. And it's a key part of the journey because many people think results are set and forget, but melanin regulation is really, like you said, ongoing. And maintenance with medical grade pigment correctors like Cyspera really helps sustain results without the downtime or that irritation that some hydroquinone regimens cause. So I love that you're talking about this and that this is part of your narrative.
I love about it versus the hydroquinone is that, with hydroquinone, you really need to make sure that you're not using it at certain times over 90 days. Sometimes with consumers, when you give them a good thing, they don't know. You tell them something. And so you almost want to give them something to protect them from themselves, right? And this is kind of like a product. Cyspera is one that's like a no-fail kind of thing. If they go on with it, we don't have to worry that they're going to be doing damage to themselves if they were on it for longer than like 90 days. So I love that about it.
And you said something very important earlier. Consistency is everything. Because I always say skin is like fitness. You can't expect tone without training, and pigment health is no different. Maintenance equals momentum. So following that protocol and that regimen really, truly is the difference between these modalities working and not, right?
Exactly.
Now, we've seen much innovation lately, from exosome technology to at-home delivery systems that rival clinic results. Even according to Allure's 2025 skincare forecast, smart actives and multi-pathway pigment correctors are leading the next wave of skin science. So looking ahead into the new year, what trends or innovations in pigment correction or skin health are you planning to bring into your practice?
So one of the things, and I'm a professional laser technician also. Okay. I love the fact that we can bring people in for these kind of big guns kind of things, like every so often here inside the med spa, but that they can go home with something like Cyspera and so the other things that they can use for a good result. One of the things that we're seeing that's popular is treating the intimate areas. We're in a time now that even in our area is very diverse, but we have entertainers. We have people that are OnlyFans models. And so they're needing everything to look camera ready. So one of the things that we're offering is our kind of glow package for these areas where they can have, armpits, the area,
the vaginal area.
I'm trying to figure. I can just throw it out there. But the vaginal area, we're doing laser hair removal. We're also lasering that area to kind of shrink up tissues to make things look nice and presentable. And we're taking care of the color or discoloration that you can find in that area with products like Cyspera, because it can be used everywhere. You could use it in those intimate areas. You could use it on the lips, around the eyes, everywhere. So that's one of the things that we're kind of excited about, in terms of rolling out and promoting, because people don't talk about it. But
I love it. Now, moving on, being mindful of the time, because beauty is also about joy and community. I love when clinics create experiences that make self-care feel celebratory, not clinical, right? So let's chat about all the fun stuff that you have coming up this season. What new events or skincare packages or protocols do you have lined up for your practice?
So we are so excited because here at Fitzy Shades Beauty and Wellness, we have purchased a new space. And so we're in our new space and we actually are going to have a grand opening ribbon cutting event in November. And during that time, we are looking to kind of really just put out all of our packages for all of this stuff. This is a time that in our community, anywhere from teens to people that have mature skin, everybody is needing something, you know? And so we're putting together packages for the lasers, the skincare, the Cyspera. What I love about it, everybody can benefit from that. My darker skin types, and I actually treat everyone, but I specialize in skin of color and anti-aging. We know that it has other components in there that actually helps with wrinkles. So this is between that and the lasers and all the other things. We're excited about rolling that out. And this is definitely going to be a community event. So
well, that sounds incredible, Diane. You've created such an inclusive space. I mean, your Fitzy Shades concept alone says it all. It's beauty without bias, and that's exactly the kind of message we need heading into 2026, I think.
Did I ever tell you about the name and how we came up with Fitzy? I didn't.
No, I'd love to hear about it.
Tell you. Okay, so you know that we all fall within a certain Fitzpatrick skin type, right? From 1 to 6. So Fitzy is a play on that. And we want people to know that we safely treat all Fitzpatrick skin types between 1 and 6. So whether you're, white and bright or you're deeply melanated, this is a safe space for everyone. And so that's where the Fitzy Shades portion of that name came from, just kind of putting it out there. And people get that education when they come in and know that, this is a safe space for you and we're going to get you taken care of.
Wow. Well, you definitely went with it where there is no path and left a great big trail in your industry. I mean, you have it down packed to a science, and your Fitzy Med Spa sounds like a place I want to come visit.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome here, honey. It's definitely it's a vibe and an experience. So,
well, congratulations to you, and thank you so much for sharing your expert talk with us. It was so much fun hearing it all, and now I have so much more tips ahead for the fall months to make sure that my skin is at its prime and best. So thank you so much. I appreciate
You're welcome.
you.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
For our listeners, if your skin is showing signs of summer, now's the time to renew and rebalance. You can learn more about Cyspera, the gold standard in pigment correction, at Cyspera.com, and you can follow Fitzy Shades Beauty directly on the gram for expert skincare and seasonal tips from registered nurse Diane Gibson, because the better, brighter you begins with science, consistency, and confidence. You can head directly to their website at FitzyShadesMedSpa.com. You can follow Diane directly on the gram at Diane Gibson. And again, make sure you're following Fitzy Shades Med Spa directly on Instagram. That was the Better, Brighter You segment brought to you by Cyspera. You're listening to A Moment of Zen. I'm your host, Zen Sams. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Cyspera. If skin discoloration is making it hard to find your Zen, Cyspera can help. Stubborn pigmentation, dark spots, and uneven skin tone concerns go beyond the surface, affecting both confidence and self-expression. In a sea of skincare choices, Cyspera stands apart. Backed by science and trusted by dermatologists worldwide, Cyspera is powered by the advanced cysteamine isobonic amide complex, delivering clinically proven results and effectively targeting mild to persistent discoloration while restoring the skin's natural glow. Unlike harsh treatments, Cyspera is formulated for all skin types, including sensitive areas, ensuring visible improvements without irritation. Whether pigmentation is a new concern or a long-standing struggle, Cyspera works in harmony with the skin to bring balance, clarity, and renewed confidence. Cyspera is science-driven skincare for confidence that shines. Find your skin zen and restore your glow with Cyspera today by heading to Cyspera.com.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to the Hydration with Heart segment, proudly brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut, hydration with a purpose. Today's headliner couldn't be more fitting. Did you stretch though? Hannah Corbin, the queen of flexibility, is coming here to talk on strength, longevity, and living with sass. We're going to dive into why stretching isn't just about touching your toes. It's about touching your potential. And studies show that consistent stretching improves circulation, lowers stress hormones, and reduces risk of injury by up to 30%. The Mayo Clinic, the Cleveland Clinic, and yet so many of us skip it. They tell us to do it because we think it's optional, but it's not. So enter today's guest. Hannah Corbin is a Peloton instructor. She's a former Broadway performer and the woman who asks millions daily, did you stretch though? Her story is about artistry. It's about resilience and transforming personal challenges into a global mission. Welcome to the show, superstar.
I'm so happy to be here.
Oh my goodness. First of all, I love the title. Did you stretch though? That's very, very fitting. Talk to me about that.
It started from people constantly asking me after doing a really tough workout. They would say, this part of my body hurts. What other intense exercise should I do to make it feel better? And I would ask, well, are you stretching? Are you foam rolling? Are you recovering? And over the years, it just shortened down more and more to, well, did you stretch though? And often the answer was no. So my goal is to reverse that and have it be a resounding yes.
Oh my God. And I love that you've taken something people often overlook, like stretching, and made it not just accessible, but like actually fun. Because many of us think of it as an afterthought, at the gym, but you've kind of reframed it as an essential self-care, right? So why is stretching so much more than just a warm-up?
It's such a wonderful way to alleviate stuck stress, tension, and even improve your mood. And I get so much joy from people coming to me after just stretching twice a week for a month or two, saying that it just completely changed their life because they're no longer having those nagging sensations, whether it's toward that feeling of pain or just that overall feeling of blah. And it's so satisfying to know that the magic works.
And it's powerful, right? What you just said, because it's not just about being bendy. It's about building balance and resilience in every part of our lives. So I love that.
100%. I saw a phrase recently and it was saying you can add years to your life, but add sustenance to it. Add that feeling of awe. Add everything. Those days being worth it. And so not feeling like a crumpled up pile of garbage every day is what I want for the universe.
Yeah, I mean, you've gone from electrifying performances in shows like Fuerza Bruta to teaching millions globally on Peloton. I mean, that's such a leap, literally and figuratively. So how has your background in theater, I want to know, this is so interesting, and dance shaped the way that you connect with people?
Goodness.
It's a loaded one.
Well, I've gotten very good at realizing that no doesn't have to get in the way of me finding a yes, which is completely different in how I approach conversations now and allows me to give the benefit of the doubt in almost every situation. But it's also taught me that complaining is not conversation, which has completely changed how I interact in the world. When you're in a theater, when you're in a dance space for 8 hours on end in a dirty basement rehearsing, you realize that, you spent so much time thinking about the negative. What if you flipped it? And how energizing could that be if you, again, don't treat complaining as conversation?
Yeah, I can see that. Your classes feel like a performance, but one where the audience actually gets to move with you. So it's pretty rewarding because I've seen some of your videos on social. They're full of energy and they make you feel like you just want to get up and move. So I love that about you because you're able to connect not just with how you're teaching, but the audience that you're teaching actually becomes part of you. It's fascinating to watch.
Thank you. It's been a really fun, sweaty journey, and I can't wait to continue on it.
And research does show that regular stretching reduces muscle tension, improves circulation, and even lowers stress hormones like cortisol, right? And that's according to Harvard Health. So how do you integrate stretching into your daily life as a way to manage both that physical health and emotional well-being?
It's one thing to release the muscles, which I dare say is my favorite pastime, but it's another thing to keep it and not slip back into old habits, because those old habits, those old postures are just reminding us of things that are no longer serving us. Oftentimes it's a time when we were too tired, too sad, feeling too old. And it's those days where we stretch, where we remind ourselves that we're none of those things. We're better than our best excuse. So might as well stretch for 5 minutes and feel as fabulous as we deserve.
I love that. It's therapy for the body and the brain in one. And so many of us really just need that reset, right?
100%. And a lot of people go through life hunched forward, arms never lifting above the head. It's actually a nervous system reset of feeling open, feeling ready to take on the universe, feeling ready to take on your day. If you can open up your energy, because that's what introduces us before we speak.
Yeah, you said hunched over and I immediately realigned. I mean, you've been open about your autoimmune diagnosis, which changed the way you looked at movement and wellness. I mean, there's a catalyst to everything. So for anyone listening who's facing a health challenge, what did that experience teach you about resilience and how did it inspire this next chapter of your work?
I learned that I'm more than what my body can't do. I, among so many other humans out there, know what it feels like to not feel good, to not feel like you're in your body, like you're not yourself. And it's hard to hear that your body is attacking itself, especially if you've created a life around fitness and wellness. But understanding that, you know, whether it was a day with a to-do list, a heavy heart, or I'm just choosing positive over negative, sometimes I just have to step back and measure my success by how much fun I'm having instead of thinking of all the things that aren't going right. What about all of the things that could?
Yeah, I love that you're looking at the glass half full versus half empty because I think society is just we're Debbie Downers. A lot of us are, right? We're just like ugh, ugh, ugh. So that positive shift and that mindset is extremely important. And thank you for sharing that because it's a reminder that our greatest pivots often come from our hardest challenges, right?
And it's not to say that you can't have a meltdown, that you can't cry on the floor and question everything, but you know, have your meltdown, have one, maybe you have 5, depending on the year, but know that you can't unpack and live there. You have to put one foot in front of the other and continue forward.
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. Okay, let's bring this into real life. So we've got people listening on their commute, others sitting at a desk right now, maybe even someone lying in bed with their AirPods in. So what's a quick, no excuse stretch that they can do right now while tuning in?
For everyone seated, cross one ankle on top of your opposite ankle. Shift your torso towards your top foot and hinge your torso forward. Already, you're in one of the most magical stretches of your life. If you're laying down in bed listening, cross that ankle, pull it up towards your face, and voila, those hips are going to thank you later. But don't forget to do the other side.
I'm trying to do it right now. See, no excuses. Look, no excuses. We can all stretch. We can all stretch while we hydrate with our coconut water.
Yes. And I think it's similar to working out. We think, well, I don't have an hour, so I'm not going to stretch today, this week. But it could be 5 minutes regularly. It's not what we do every once in a while. It's what we do often that really adds up and makes a difference in our lives.
Oh yeah, it's those little micro steps that matter. And you've built a global community by reminding people that movement is joy, not punishment. And with longevity becoming such a buzzword in wellness, what's one mindset shift you wish everyone would make when it comes to stretching, aging, and living well?
I want people to treat their bodies like they belong to someone they love. For me, that's hydrating more than you are now. It's celebrating yourself in sweat. It's eating the way you want to feel. And it's showing your tired, hardworking muscles some love. Obviously, through stretching is part of that last one.
I mean, that's the takeaway. We can't stop time, but we can absolutely stretch how good life feels while we're here, right?
You can make the most of it for sure.
We can, without a doubt. So, Hannah, you've always reminded us to stretch, but recovery and performance aren't just about movement. So hydration is just as critical, and even mild dehydration, without a doubt, can reduce flexibility and performance by nearly 10%. So since Once Upon a Coconut is all about making hydration simple and purposeful, let's flip your signature line for a second. If we swapped, did you stretch though, with did you hydrate though, what would that look like in your world? I mean, how do you personally keep hydration a daily ritual?
I have a goal, and my goal is to drink at least half of my body weight, and that's body weight in pounds, in ounces of water, bonus points if it's coconut water, per day. So
Ooh.
It sounds like a lot because it is if you're not hydrating. And small sips, just like stretching, add up to a lot. You don't need to chug a gallon in an hour, small sips throughout the day. But at first, it's going to be a trip to the urination station, right? You're going to have to go to the bathroom all the time. Your bladder's going to have to adjust, but it will. And before you know it, you're not going to be able to live without that hydration, that feeling of your skin feeling better, of your joints not feeling so achy, of just your general digestion being better.
I love that because it makes hydration and stretching feel like the perfect 1-2 punch for resilience and longevity, right?
Yeah, exactly. That visual is perfection.
Exactly. Listen, we are at the end of our date. I could go on and talk for another half an hour with you, but this is a beautiful reminder that stretching isn't just a warm up, it's a lifestyle, it's a stress buster, and really a path to longevity is what you're saying. And I love how you put it so simply that's those small daily rituals, whether it's stretching or hydrating, really do add up to a lifetime of resilience.
Thank you so much. I mean, a little goes a long way, and we can have a million reasons for why we can't or don't have time for something. But in truth, we make time for the people and things we want to make time for.
And thank you for joining us. And for everyone listening, remember her signature question: did you stretch though? And you can head directly to didyoustretchthough.com and check her out directly on the gram at Hannah Corbin NYC. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. That was the Hydration with Heart segment brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut.
Discover the refreshing taste of 100% pure coconut water that actually tastes great. Naturally sweet with no artificial flavors or added sugar. It's packed with electrolytes to keep you hydrated throughout your day. And with 10% of profits going to charity, every sip makes a difference. Pure taste, pure goodness. Experience nature's Gatorade. Visit Once Upon a Coconut or naturesgatorade.com.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up next in the Going Deep segment brought to you by CO2 Lift in our Expert on the Microphone series, today we're featuring Dr. Michelle Hanna, best-selling author, personal and business relationship coach, and international speaker. With 2 doctorates and a diverse background in coaching individuals and organizations, she's known for her compassionate and empathetic approach. She's the author of the Self-Vows series, as well as The Breaking Point and The Vows, and her most recent release, Access Denied, Access Granted, continues to affirm her impact as a thought leader in healing, boundaries, and authenticity. She's going to join me right now to chat all about intimacy and healing, both physical and emotional, and the steps that can guide you towards personal growth and fulfilling healthy relationships. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Hi, how are you? Thank you. Glad to be here.
So excited to have you on. So I'm going to dive right in. Dr. Michelle, you've written the best-selling books. I mean, one after the next. You've been featured on major platforms, including Fox and CBS, and even Forbes, and even founded transformational experiences like your Self-Vows program, all in which you share your powerful insights on cultivating those emotionally intelligent relationships and the personal development. And I love the wellness and empowerment of it all. So what inspired you to dedicate your life to helping others in these areas?
Well, basically, it was my own brokenness, my own healing, my own rediscovery. I remember my first book, which was The Breaking Point. It seems like forever. But what has stood the test of time is my 4 Bs. And so I'll just start with the first B, which is break up. There is a break. That is the pain of it. But the second word is up. So it's a break up, meaning I'm leaving this to this relationship, this career, whatever it is, and I'm elevating myself. I'm evolving. I'm going to the next level. The second B is break down. That's when we go down to the surrender, the pain of it, the lessons that we need to learn. But there's a break, and then we need to go down in the valley of that experience and surrender to it and learn the lessons. The third B is the breakthrough. There is a break, and it's the through. You can't spell through without spelling rough. So it will be rough, but you will get through it. And then there's the last B, which is breakout. After we settle and we let the dust settle and we get clear about things and we're accountable, to whatever it is that we've been through and we've gone through, and accept it and honor it as our lesson. We then break back out into executing our purpose. So that is what I have really lived my life by. That is what I teach my clients, is to first start with those 4 Bs. And once you really accept that part, it's going to be a much easier journey to get through whatever it is that you're going through, because we're all going through something. Even though people think I always have it together, no, I'm going through something right now that is one of the toughest battles of my life right now, but I'm getting through it. So that has
Wow.
been the reasoning of my work with others, and also my self-work.
Wow. You are a trailblazer, sister. I mean, I always say hurt people, but healed people, heal people, right?
Yes.
Now let's chat about intimacy. We know it's not just physical, it's also emotional, and both are deeply interconnected and equally important. As a relationship coach and the intimacy architect, how do you see intimacy playing a role in relationships, and why is it so important to nurture both sides of it, physical and emotional?
Well, intimacy is literally the lifeline to relationship. You have to have both. You have to have the emotional side, and you have to have the physical side. I think they do a beautiful dance, and where they intersect is actually through healing. So I believe that individuals have to first go through their healing journey as individuals. And I think it'll make it a lot easier, for me to say, come into me, which is intimacy. So I would say, like, there's 8 parts of intimacies, but I deal with 4, which is intellectual, emotional, physical, and spiritual. I think that those 4, in my opinion, are the most profound. So it is just as important to actually have intellectual stimulation and intimacy with someone as it is physical intimacy. Emotional intimacy, I do believe, is at the core of everything. I go back and forth, emotional and spiritual. But I feel like when we are not emotionally healed in certain areas, or we have not addressed certain wounds that have been in our lives, it's going to make it very difficult to show up that way for someone else. I also believe that when it comes to physical intimacy, if you don't have the emotional intimacy, you're not going to have the compassion or the empathy to understand when someone may be going through a physical, intimate challenge in their life. You're just not going to have it. You're going to be very selfish about it. But if you are emotionally intimate, you will have empathy. You will have compassion. And now it won't be like, oh, that's your problem. It'll be like, no, that's our problem. We're
Yeah.
going through this together.
I love how you frame intimacy as a as multidimensional, because it reminds me of Esther Perel's work, where she notes that intimacy isn't just about closeness, but about the quality of our attention. And studies show that couples who report high emotional intimacy are 3 times more likely to describe their relationship as satisfying. So what you're saying is spot on. And
Yes.
speaking of intimacy, let's chat about CO2 Lift V, a life-changing at-home treatment that has helped countless women redefine intimate self-care, including you. So as you know, for those listening, but those watching, CO2 Lift V harnesses the power of carboxytherapy in the form of a gel delivering hydration. And really, it's very soothing. Soothing sensitivity is what I always say. And it supports overall intimate skin vitality. So Dr. Michelle, in your experience, how has the CO2 Lift V become an important treatment option for both you and your clients? And while it restores physical intimate health, have you also seen it spark emotional healing for women?
Wow. I am really going to get through this answer without tears, because this product is hope. It is my miracle. When this was introduced into my life, I was literally at my lowest. I had just been told that there was a great possibility that I would never have any type of physical intimacy ever again.
Ugh.
To tell me something like that was devastating. And when I met Lana, we hear about meeting angels, but I met an angel for sure, because she was the hope for me. And what I mean by that is I was told that I needed to go on a low dose of a topical chemo. And I knew in my heart that I did not want to do it. I knew that I wasn't going to do it. And I met her and she gave me her product. And in 23 years of burning, I used her product and it wasn't there. And I was in shock. I didn't even know how to feel, because I'm like, is this real? Is this really real?
Pardon me, what's your official diagnosis?
So I had a rare skin cancer that was in the vulva area, but I'm also a cervical cancer survivor. But so that was the first thing, is that the burn wasn't there. I was so thankful. I was so thankful that if it didn't do anything else, that part was amazing. The other thing was the inflammation, is that it took a lot of the redness and inflammation. It wasn't totally gone, but I'm still going through the treatments of her wonderful product, but it did take it down significantly. And I'm so used to seeing my own vulva look a certain kind of way. So I was very clear that the inflammation was going down. So that was beautiful. Now, for the intangible things, it started to restore my self-worth, which is very important for me being in the business that I am. It started to restore that. It started to restore my confidence. It made me look at myself in the mirror and not see failure. I saw a woman that I hadn't seen in a very long time.
Look, there's 50% of women out there, they experience some form of vaginal dryness or discomfort after 40, but so many suffer in silence, whether it's something extreme like your situation or something just like, uncomfortable sex or, dryness. That's why I think treatments like CO2 Lift V are not just about self-care, but about self-empowerment, which is what we're talking about here. And treatments like these, paired with the work you do, are so important for helping break stigmas and encourage transparent and honest conversations around intimacy. It reminds me of a quote. It reminds me of a quote by Peter Bromberg: when we avoid difficult conversations, we trade short-term discomfort for long-term dysfunction. Right.
Yes.
And however, opening up and engaging in difficult conversations, it's often easier said than done. So, Dr. Michelle, how do you help clients who are hesitant take those first steps towards transparency and ultimately healing? And why are these conversations so important?
It's a need, and there's a freedom in having tough conversations. So I think the first thing is the acceptance of, I need to have this conversation. I need to be transparent. And I think there's a difference between honesty and transparency. Honesty is, I just feel like it should be a given. Like we really do owe people honesty, just to be honest, just to tell the truth. Now, transparency is something different. That's me actually telling you the things that you didn't ask, and me actually being transparent about those things on purpose. It's not easy. It's uncomfortable. But I do feel when you take little small transparency steps, the freedom that you get from that, then you will be prepared to then take the bigger steps. And also to, sometimes when we're even dating, and I have a lot of clients that they're dating and they have different purposes on why they date. And they're always asking, well, when should I say this? Or when should I, speak about this, which I think is very important for maybe that person to know. I always say that when you lie, sometimes it's not a blatant lie. Sometimes it's the lie of omission. But when you lie, you really take the other person's choice away. Because if they had known that pertinent information, maybe they would have made a different choice. So that's why I think that transparency is just so important.
Which brings me to your self vows series. So programs and retreats are rooted in the idea that healing starts with the self. You describe how we spend half our lives wanting and waiting to take the traditional wedding vows with someone else, but we are unaware that what we need to take is the vows to self first. So if you could describe briefly, what does that process look like, and why is it such a critical first step before we can build healthy relationships with others?
So, for example, to love and to cherish. Most people, you actually say, hey, do you love yourself? Oh, yeah, I love myself. But they don't spend time with themselves. They don't go on dates with themselves. They don't even know what they really like to do. They don't know what sets their soul on fire. They don't know what their purpose is. They haven't spent that time with themselves to, one, like themselves, then to fall in love with themselves, then to really love themselves and to keep building on that love from level to level to level. They haven't done that. And when it comes to cherish, a lot of us that are givers, we pour and pour and pour to so many people, but we don't do that for ourselves. We have a long list of people we help, but we don't even make the list. So when you think about that, just that one vow, and to love and to cherish. If you don't do that for you, how do you show up in a marriage, in a relationship, and know how to really extend that to the other person? And I just want to say this one more thing. A lot of times, couples have come into my office and they'll say, well, he doesn't show me love, or she doesn't show me love, or I don't feel loved, and he doesn't do this, and these are the things that I like, and these are the things that I need. And then I ask the question, okay, you're mad because he doesn't give you the flowers that you want or the frequency on how you want to receive them. Do you buy your own self flowers? Well, no, that's for him to do, really, because that's actually for you to do first, to you. Buy your own self flowers. Because if you really like flowers every week and you know that's not his capacity, then why put that blame on him? I'm not saying that he shouldn't buy them at all, but if you want them every week, buy your own self flowers and smile at that. And honestly, you will become more intimate with self because you just gave yourself a gift that you say that you really need.
Well, it's clear that your work often acts as a roadmap for transformation, even just this interview, whether it's personal healing, you know, their relationships or their work, you seem to be on the pulse with whoever you're helping. So for someone who feels stuck in any of these areas, what's the very first step you'd encourage them to take? And what do you hope they carry with them after engaging with your work?
I think the first step is just saying, something is off. I need help. Just being vulnerable to, I need help. Maybe not even knowing so much of what you even need help with, but just knowing that there's something, especially women, we know intuition that something is off and that we need help. I think that's the first step. The second step is the acceptance of that you got some work to do and that it will be a process and that it's not going to be overnight. So, for example, if you're 40 years old, then it's taking you 40 years to get there. So it's not going to take you overnight to go through the process, and be willing and patient and give yourself grace with that. We are actually doing the self-house retreat. We do like 4 of them a year. And with me not being as well as I wanted to be this year, we are only doing one, which starts on Thursday. And I think that when you go through the self-house program, it is the most intense work that you will ever do on yourself, in my opinion, because you cannot run from self if you don't want to. And then it's almost like a treat is the retreat. We still do more self-work, but we really spoil you. And we really love you from a place of just absolutely just a pure place of unconditional love. And then we build sisterhood, because I think it's important for you to have a support system. You know, it's great when I can help you through your process, but then there has to be support to continue that work. And that's what we build. We build sisterhood in that as well, too. So I think that those are some of the steps that I would say for people to just like, where do I start? Some people don't even know how to be authentic and what that even means. But so I think even the first step in that is maybe just doing an exercise. You close your eyes and then you ask yourself, if it wasn't about anybody's opinion, if it wasn't about what people say about me, how they view me, if it wasn't even about my own self-critic, what would I be? Who would I be? And just me doing that example of an exercise, it just works, because the first word that pops up in my mind when I say those things is free. I would be free.
Wow. I think that's a gem right there. And for anyone listening who feels overwhelmed, remember that these small steps create big shifts, right? Even that one sentence. Because neuroscience tells us that building micro habits rewires the brain's reward system. So momentum begins with the tiniest of commitments.
Yes.
And that's a simple thing, right? Well, we are officially out of time. Oh my goodness. I'm like in a trance. I could still listen and talk to you for another 30 minutes, but we officially have to cut it. I can't thank you enough. That was incredible. You're just amazing. You're a trailblazer. I'm in awe.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for the space for it to just be safe and non-judgmental, and for me to share my heart. So thank you.
That was the incredible Dr. Michelle Hanna. She's a best-selling author, personal and business relationship coach, and international speaker. You can learn more about her work and her programs at michellerhanna.com. And you can definitely check her out on the gram at Michelle_R_Hanna. And do check out the Self Vows at theselfvows.com, and on the gram at the Self Vows Retreat. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. That was the Going Deep segment, brought to you by CO2 Lift. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by CO2 Lift. As we age, our skin loses moisture and elasticity, causing wrinkled skin. You can reverse this aging process with CO2 Lift. CO2 Lift utilizes the powerful benefits of carbon dioxide to lift, tighten, and regenerate your skin. This simple, painless at-home carboxytherapy treatment is scientifically proven to reverse the aging process. You will see reduction in wrinkles, increase in luminosity, and improve pigmentation, sagging, skin tone, and radiance.
For more information or to order CO2 Lift, ask your skincare professional or go to co2lift.com.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Tortora Promotions, specializing in white glove digital marketing, social media management, professional videography, and PR services. Based in New York City and partnering with hundreds of businesses nationwide, they deliver proven strategies that bring more customers through the door. If your old marketing methods aren't keeping up, Tortora Promotions can step in to help you stay ahead. Grow your brand and drive real results. Reach out today and follow them on Instagram at Tortora Promotions. Your business deserves it.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to the Clean Collective segment, brought to you by Society Brands. Now, when we talk about clean beauty, we're really talking about health. The products we use on our skin are absorbed into our bodies every single day. And what goes on, goes in. That's why clean beauty isn't just about looking good. It's about feeling good and protecting your long-term wellness. And with the average woman using 12 personal care products a day, containing 168 different chemicals, it's important we're making a safer and cleaner choice. But as the clean beauty market has exploded into a billion-dollar phenomenon, there's been a rise of pretenders and greenwashers. Everywhere you look, there's a new product claiming to be natural, non-toxic, or eco-friendly. Yet behind the pretty packaging, many of these claims fall apart. Consumers are faced with misleading information, mixed messages, and marketing gimmicks. It's confusing, it's frustrating, and it shouldn't be that way. Clean beauty should never be just a marketing term. It should be a genuine promise, one rooted in truth, transparency, and trust. That's where Crunchy comes in. Since 2016, Crunchy has gone beyond industry buzzwords to create uncompromised clean beauty, a collection of high-performance makeup and skincare powered by safe, clinically proven ingredients and delivered in innovative, sustainable packaging. Every product is third-party tested for purity and verified by trusted certifications, including EWG verified, Leaping Bunny certified, cruelty-free, and 4Ocean plastic neutral. In an industry clouded by mixed messages, Crunchy sets a new standard rooted in safety, performance, and sustainability, so you never have to choose between your health, flawless results, or the planet. With full ingredient transparency, rigorous testing, and a commitment to conscious packaging, Crunchy is more than a beauty brand. It's a movement raising the bar for what clean beauty should be. To learn more, you could head to crunchy.com. That was the Clean Collective segment brought to you by Society Brands. We'll be right back after this. You're listening to A Moment of Zen. I'm your host, Zen Sams.
A Moment of Zen is sponsored by FinTech TV.
FinTech TV, the newest streaming channel focused exclusively on the business of blockchain, digital assets, and sustainability. Broadcasting from our studio on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange with daily reports from NASDAQ, global expansion, and 24/7 coverage. Become part of the launch. Head to fintech.tv/invest. Fintech.tv/invest.
Tune in to A Moment of Zen, Saturday nights from 9 to 10 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Your Home TV with Kathy Ireland and their channel partners. Head to yourhometv.com for free, family-friendly programming, streaming 24/7.
In business and in life, there's always an upside. Finding it is often the challenge. Having a mindset that looks for it and embraces problems as opportunities is the key to thriving. Finding the Upside with Maria de Lorenzis Reyes explores the transformative power of optimism, featuring visionary business owners, influential leaders, and inspiring everyday people. Tune in and see how they navigate changing conditions with optimism and innovation. Watch the special series One Tough Chick, highlighting resilient and powerful women, streaming on yourhometv.com.
Tune in to A Moment of Zen, Saturday nights from 9 to 10 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York.
That's a wrap, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Remember to join me right here on A Moment of Zen every Saturday and head to amomentofzen.com for live listening links and episode downloads in your city. And also remember that we're live on Traverse TV Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern, YouTube Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern, and all episodes of A Moment of Zen are now available on Your Home TV streaming platform. You can head directly to mox.yourhometv.com. Thank you for listening to us. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. Thanks again to all of our sponsors that continue to make the show possible. And remember that happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it. Remember to join me right here on 710 WR, the voice of New York, every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m. Or you could head to 710WOR.iHeart.com /A Moment of Zen. We'll be back next week.